I have had an awful lot of questions about being vegan whilst hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. I have done a previous video all about resupplying, how I resupplied, where I sent myself boxes, and also where I'd recommend sending boxes. But in this video, what I'm going to do is talk about why nutrition was important to me on the trail, what types of food I ate, and also go through all the questions from previous videos that are relating to food, diet, and nutrition. First of all, let me assure you that it can be done. So many people I've heard talking, saying that vegans can't hike the PCT, or that it's impossible, or they're going to have a terrible experience. Don't listen to them. If you prepare properly and look after yourself and just be conscious of what you're buying and what food you're taking in, it can be done. You can enjoy it and you can have just as good experience as anybody else out there on trail. Trust me, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I was at the disadvantage that I'm not even from America. I'm from the United Kingdom, which means that everything that I had to do, I did in America. I couldn't really bring anything from home, have anything sent to me, and I managed okay. I did everything whilst out on trail, and I survived. I completed it. So I'm living proof that it can be done, and it can be done with a smile on your face as well. I want to talk a little bit about some of the important vitamins and minerals and things like that that I took and why I took them, just so I knew that I was giving myself the best possible chance of being able to complete the entire trail. First of all, let's talk about iron. Now, I'm not a medical practitioner, but I do know quite a lot about nutrition and health. Iron is key, and it's important to make sure you've got the correct levels before heading out on trail and also maintaining whilst out on trail. Iron produces red blood cells, and if you've got low hemoglobin, it means not enough oxygen is getting delivered to your muscles, which means that you're going to end up tired, exhausted, and with aching muscles and just not going to be able to hike properly. So it's important to make sure that you get enough in your diet. Being a vegan, it's also important because your body just doesn't absorb it from plant-based sources like it does with meat. So to help that, it's really important to take it alongside vitamin C. So it helps the absorption of iron by allowing it to get into the blood a lot easier. Another thing I would recommend is not to have caffeinated drink or peppermint tea 2 hours before or after having an iron-rich meal, because it also inhibits the absorption. There is varying advice for how much iron you should be having on a daily basis, but the figures that I seem to have noticed is quite a common figure, especially in the UK, is about 18 milligrams per day, and that's for an adult female or male. Now, because you're vegan, you have to have more than this because it's coming from a plant base. So therefore they recommend having 1.8 times this amount, which works out at 32.4 milligrams. Now, the best sources of getting this out on trail are your pulses, which is lentils. Make sure you have lots of grains, so your oats and your quinoa. Dark leafy vegetables such as spinach, kale, broccoli, spring greens. And you can also get it from tofu, nuts and seeds. I think pumpkin seeds in particular are high in iron, as well as dried fruits. So things like apricots, figs and prunes. And another one of my favourites is the fact that dark chocolate has it in. Now, don't forget what I said before about vitamin C, so try and have as many vitamin C rich foods as possible, as well as those types of food. So try and add in things like oranges, red peppers, berries, mangoes, and even tomatoes, and that helps it absorb the iron. Now, another thing I would recommend is get your bloods checked before you head out on trail. And this doesn't just apply to vegans. It's amazing how many people are actually low in iron or vitamin B12. Now, I had somebody recently asking me a little bit of advice because she was vegan and heading out on trail, and she said that she was quite tired with all her training, and I said it might just be worth getting your bloods checked. And it turns out that she had low iron and low B12. So she's given herself the advantage now of knowing this before heading out on trail, so she can top up on everything and get in the best shape possible to start her trek. Now, let's talk about vitamin B12. B12 is used to produce red blood cells, and it also keeps your nervous system happy. It also helps release energy from food. However, if you become deficient in B12, it can make your red blood cells grow abnormally large, which means that they're not working effectively. Therefore, you can actually develop anemia, which not many people realise that is a cause of lack of vitamin B12. So you do need to take a supplement as a vegan because it is not found naturally in any plant-based sources. It only comes from animal sources. So you can have food fortified with vitamin B12 or take an additional supplement, which is what I chose to do on trail. Now, I took this supplement out on trail with me. Apparently you need about 2.4 micrograms a day. If you don't get enough, you suffer the risk of having weakness, shortness of breath, nerve problems, and also muscle problems, and even problems walking, and it can end up a lot more serious, which is why I decided to carry it out on trail. I just found that having the oral spray helped it absorb a lot better for me, because I've heard that that's much better than taking tablets. Another thing that I took out on trail was zinc, because I thought at one point, especially with all the snow, my immune system was a little bit lower than it should be, so I just wanted a little top up for that. And also I did take magnesium throughout some of the trail as well, because that was recommended to me after I was starting to have a lot of muscle cramps, especially at night. It's the worst thing when you're lying in your tent at night and your legs are just cramping, and that helped. I think it helped within only a few days of taking magnesium. So I'd highly recommend that if anyone's suffering with leg cramps at night. And yes, I'm going to address the elephant in the room that everybody asks us vegans about. What about your protein? How are you going to cope with your protein levels? Oh my gosh, if I have heard this once, I've heard it 1,000 times. How many people, just out of curiosity, have you heard have died of lack of protein? But seriously, protein levels, I've never had any problems with lack of protein in my diet. I make sure that I eat plenty of protein-rich foods such as tofu, beans, lentils, nuts, hummus, seeds, and I managed to get quite a lot of vegan jerky as well. So they're all the kind of things that are good to implement your diet with on trail. So what did I actually eat on trail? If you have been watching my videos from the PCT, you'll notice that I did take a few clips of my food here and there. I couldn't help it. I quite liked my food on trail most of the time. There were some very sketchy areas that I just thought, oh, I can't believe I'm eating this. It was so bad in some places. But generally my nutrition was pretty good on trail. So let me run through the types of things I had for breakfast. I'd always like to make porridge. I think I had that probably 95% of the time on trail, or oatmeal from my American friends. But not just any old oatmeal. I used to supplement mine as much as possible. And I think in the end I found that my breakfast was probably one of the most nutrient-packed meals of my day. What I would do is I'd have my oats, I'd add in some protein powder. I usually just use vanilla. I kind of like the Sun Warrior one or Garden of Life. They were my two favourite out on trail. I ended up having to buy a lot of the sachets or packets, I think you call them, rather than the great big tubs, because obviously that would have been far too heavy to carry around. But if you're doing resupplies, get one of the big tubs and then just put it in with your little porridge packets when you make them up. Also in there, I used to add a load of chia seeds, so I knew I was getting my omega-3s. I'd add in nuts, seeds, dried fruits, and of course peanut butter. That went in all the time. It's extremely important to get your fats out there as well, so having it first thing on the morning was a great way to get them in there. Sometimes I'd also add in coconut powder. Another thing I used to have for breakfast were Pro bars. Now these were quite rare that I had these for breakfast because I just liked my porridges and my oatmeal mixtures. I just felt like I was getting so much goodness without any extra nasties in the ingredients, and it was kind of nice to have something so pure. But Pro bars were a great alternative for me, especially if I was setting off super early on the morning. Sometimes I just couldn't stomach eating so early, so I'd probably set off and then within about half an hour I'd have a Pro bar on the way, especially on those mornings when we were setting off at 3-4 in the morning to get over some of the passes in the snow. They were really important. Now for my lunches, these were probably one of my hardest meals to figure out on trail. I tried my best, but they were quite tricky. They usually consisted of quinoa or couscous with dehydrated beans, and I carried one of those little talenti jars out with me, and I found those super useful because what I do is in my tent on a morning, I put my refried beans in there or my dehydrated beans, I'd add in my couscous, and then I'd pour on water, screw the top off, throw it in my backpack, and then by lunchtime it was all ready and I could just eat it straight away. That was a great combination for me. Other things that you can do are have nut butters, hummus dehydrated with tortillas or crackers, or just snack on things like Pro bars or Cliff bars. It was pretty much all I had for lunches. I just kept it quite simple. For my dinners, I would then have backpacker meals, and backpacker pantry was one of my favorites. They had a Cuban beans and rice, and that had a really nice coconut and banana flavor to it. I also like the pad thai that they do. There was another brand called Good To Go, and they had a Mexican quinoa bowl that was extremely tasty. And I think they also had some kind of kale stew. I can't remember what it was called, but that was nice. It tasted very wholesome, very home cooked. Another brand was called Trail Fork, and they did a limey beans and rice. I think that was one of my favourite ones on Trail, but it was very pricey, so I think I only got that once or twice. Apart from that, I would sometimes have North Side, so they do like a Mexican rice and a Spanish rice. And what I would do is mix that up with some tofurkey or something else that I had out on Trail. Other things that I loved to do for my dinners were carry out fresh food from towns. So wherever possible, I would carry out tofu or tofurkey and then mix it in with some broccoli. So I'd literally boil water in my pot and cook broccoli, spinach, kale, and then I'd add it with some couscous or mashed potato, some nutritional yeast powder, also called nooch, and olive oil, and mix all that together with a bit of salt and pepper. I really enjoyed my dinners on Trail. There were Idahoan, I think that's how you say it, mashed potato packets. I probably had them 3 times and then I just couldn't stomach them anymore, but the plain version is vegan friendly. One other thing that I really liked on Trail, I think it was called Jackfruit Company, and it was a jackfruit complete meal. Now that wasn't dehydrated, so it wasn't lightweight, but I did put some of those in my resupply boxes because I just found them so tasty. Now for snacks, I went a little bit crazy with Cliff bars. There were so many flavours in America, I was not used to that at all. So I would generally have things like Cliff bars on a morning just for that extra energy, and then during the day I'd also snack on Lara bars, Luna bars, which were like a chocolate version. The Lara bars obviously were much healthier, they were just made out of wholesome ingredients, so usually they only had 4 or 5 ingredients in them. I did then snack on some nuts and seeds. I'd make a lot of homemade trail mixes, so when I'd get to a town I would buy whole bags of nuts such as almonds, cashews, pecans, all things like that. I'd get dried fruit, so I'd get sultanas or raisins, dried mango, pineapple, mix it all together. I would put in a bit of salt as well because I thought that was important to keep my salt levels high. What else did I put in my trail mixes? Coconut flakes were nice. And sometimes I'd add in dark chocolate. So I'd get a bar of dark chocolate and snap it up and put some of that in there as well for extra energy. The Lenny and Larry complete cookies were something that I had quite a lot of. I sampled I think nearly all the flavours and really only liked about 1 or 2 of them. I think my favourite one was the snickerdoodle, so that was quite nice. I also had peanut butter or cashew butter, those little Justin sachets that you can get, or packets, and you just eat them straight out of the packet. They were tasty. I think sometimes I had Skittles, Swedish fish, which are like these pink Swedish chewy fish things. They were quite nice. And also some vegan jerkies. I enjoyed those on Trail. It was something nice and chewy and it had a different texture to it. Now, another thing that I had quite regularly on Trail were these green superfoods. I would add these to water and just stir them up. I used to use my Talenti jar or put them in my pot and just use them as a drink. I did put them in my water bottle a couple of times, but you can't really clean it properly afterwards, so I wouldn't recommend that. But these have got so many micronutrients in them, and I just found they give me a bit of an extra zing. And of course I had coffee. I couldn't go without coffee on Trail. I tended to just use a Starbucks Via, which I think is quite a popular one. I did try the other brand, is it Folgers or Folgers? I can't say I like that very much, but the Starbucks Via were okay. Now don't let anybody tell you that when you get to towns a vegan cannot be happy, because I had so many nice meals in towns. You just have to look for them and know where to go. Some of my favourite places, I think the one that stands out the most to me was Idlewild. There's a place called the Plant-Based Supper Club and the food there was absolutely gorgeous. It was so tasty. Another place was Bishop, where I went quite a lot of times because we went there twice because we ended up coming back off trail and going there again. And in the Looney Bean Cafe, they did all these acai bowls and smoothies. They had like nourish bowls. I got so addicted to the food there. Another place was Syed Valley Cafe, and they actually did vegan pancakes, and I couldn't believe it. They even had vegan milk in there for coffee. So I spent a nice few hours in there eating pancakes. I stayed that long actually that I ended up having the garden burger because it had gone from breakfast to lunch whilst I was in there. But bear in mind, the garden burger, when I was there, the bun itself had dairy in it, so I just had the burger with the salad. Another place that I really liked on trail was Thru-hike. They had a bakery and they had quite a few vegan options. I had a great big salad sandwich to start with, and then this dessert sweet thing. It was like a flapjack but super sweet. They did have a few other things, but they said they were vegan, but it pointed out that they had honey in them, so obviously I didn't have that. But if you're a vegan that eats honey, you've got extra options there as well. Lastly, there was the Paradise Cafe, where I had a vegan burger, and that was extremely nice. And on my birthday actually, I went to the, I think it was called Locks and Dogs, or Dogs and Locks or something, in Oregon, and that was near the Bridge of the Gods. They're not open every day, but I had a vegan hot dog in there and a vegan milkshake, so that was a very nice treat on my birthday. Some of my favourite foods whilst in town that I got were things like smoothies, salads, anything vegetable based. I had an unhealthy amount of vegan pizzas, obviously pancakes. I had some good Thai food, went to a couple of Indian restaurants, had vegan sushi, and then I think one thing I thoroughly enjoyed, and I don't know why, I just think it was carbohydrate overload, but it was so tasty, and that were the burritos. Now, I had never really had a burrito before I went to America. I thought I had, but not until I got there. Then I realised what a burrito was. And it's so funny because even Kevin now, one of my trail families, he actually says to me, "Can you remember that burrito you had?" And I'm like, "Which one?" He went, "The one that was bigger than your head." And I think I must have said, "It's bigger than my head." They're so huge. And when you look at them, you think, I'm never going to be able to eat all that. But you do. It's amazing. Hiker hunger just kicks in and you just eat a lot. I've just realised how long I was talking about food. I do apologise, and I am going to now do some of the Q&As. I get a little bit excited. I don't know, I just found so many people thought that it would be such a hard work to do the PCT whilst being vegan. And I found it, I mean, don't get me wrong, there was times when you got to certain towns that were just a little bit appalling. And I have pointed out in my resupply video exactly where I recommend sending packages and food to yourself, because the choices are just a little bit abysmal. But generally, I didn't find it that hard. I was quite surprised with so many different places that were so vegan friendly. And I'm not just talking about restaurants or cafes or hotels, but even the trail angels out there, they would provide plenty of things for vegans, like fruit. And I got to this one guy and he had cooked corn from his own garden for me with a carrot and some celery and peanut butter. And they were just amazing. They were just so incredible. They cater for different diets. I mean, obviously never expect that from trail angels because they're out there doing it out of the goodness of their heart. But whenever there was fruit and things like that, I was just, I was so happy just to see a strawberry or a piece of melon or something. It was incredible. But yes, I'm going to now go through the questions that you have asked me and stop babbling away as usual. So the ones that are left, I mean, a lot of questions were just about what did I eat, where did I resupply, what kind of foods I ate whilst in towns and things like that. So hopefully I've answered all those questions. Sarah Dunstan asked me, where did I buy the green superfood? Now, I think she's talking about this, which is the green version, and you also get a chocolate version, which I had on trail. I wasn't that keen on the chocolate one, but I did like the green one. I remember the first time I tried this, it was a little bit weird because I'd never had anything like that neat before. I'd usually put it in smoothies at home, but not have it just with water. But I bought this in Walmart, and I think there was 15 sachets in a packet, or packets, I don't know how you call it, but in the UK we call them sachets. That's a sachet, and that was about $17, so they weren't cheap. I have done a quick search on Amazon and you can buy these in bulk, so a whole tub of them. So if you're doing it from the United States and you want to send yourself resupply packages, it might work out cheaper to buy a tub of it and pop it into little Ziploc bags or something and send it yourself that way. Ronald Rose asks me, am I becoming accustomed, or was I becoming accustomed to the hiker diet? No, Ronald, I never took the hiker diet. I did try. I remember when I was going through the Sierra section, Beerhang, bless him, I think I'd lost a little bit of weight at that point, and he was trying to feed me all the time. So I was introduced to ramen, I was introduced to Skittles, and just lots of unhealthy food. And I tried, and even Pop-Tarts, because the unfrosted ones, the strawberry unfrosted ones, are vegan friendly. So I did try everything, but if I'm being honest, they just don't agree with me. And it's not that I just had to have fruit and vegetables all the time, but it made me feel groggy and it made me feel tired and lethargic. And I think when you have that amount of pure sugar or badness in food, you get the crash afterwards, and I did not like that, and that's what I felt was happening. I did do it during the Sierra section. I did have a lot more chocolate and a lot more bad stuff. When I got into towns, I was eating tubs of vegan ice cream. It was terrible, and huge amounts of anything that I could get hold of. But I felt better and more energized when I ate healthy. So I went through a stage and then I got straight out of it. So no, I never embraced the hiker diet. Thomas H asks me, have I tried the Noble brand of vegan jerky? Yes, it was yummy. It was so tasty. I'd highly recommend that one. Randy Smith asks me, not many people rely on meal drops all the way through, and he's assuming because I'm vegan, would I do more than most hikers? Now, I have just looked at the figures that have just been produced by all the questionnaires that were done for the class of 2019, and the average numbers of boxes that were sent to yourself for resupply worked out as 8. Now, I sent myself 8 boxes, which means I'm part of the average. So by being vegan, I didn't go above and beyond that. I did a total of 9 resupplies in total, because I didn't send myself a box to Sonora Pass, but I did order food to go there for me. So I suppose you could say I was 8 to 9, but no, I don't think I did any more than anybody else. Randy Smith also asks me, you're not packing a tofu waterpress, are you? I think what this means is saying that I could also place my tofu in a sock and start swinging it around my head until the water comes out, and it would make me strong as well. No, I didn't pack out a tofu press. The tofu that I took out on trail with me was one of those vacuum packed pre-cooked ones, so it had already been cooked, and I found that that was okay on trail for a day or two as long as it wasn't too hot. But no, I didn't pack out a press. Catherine DeMarco asks me, is the tofurkey okay mappack for a few days after I'd opened it? Now, I think that personally for me lasted 3 to 4 days sometimes, and once I'd opened it, I just made sure I put it in a Ziploc bag and it was okay for another day. I'd always try and eat the tofurkey, the tofu, any cheese that I took out with me within 2 days of going out back on trail again. So that would be the first thing I ate, not only for freshness, but because it weighed the most as well. But yeah, I found it was fine. I didn't do it at the beginning in the desert sections, but in the Sierra sections, things like that were great, and in Oregon when it was a bit cooler. But where I had it, and also another thing to bear in mind is I used to put my food for the day in the top part of my backpack. But if it was tofu, tofurkey or cheese, things like that, I'd put it inside my backpack a bit more, and it just kept it a little bit cooler. Bertman4 asked me if I'd tried adding coconut milk powder to increase calories. Yes, I had. I put that in my porridge sometimes, my oatmeal. Sometimes I also had it in drinks as well, but I didn't like it that much in drinks. But yeah, I did add that a few times. Rigby Bucolic says that my meals were definitely an education for him. Who knew about dried hummus? He asked me about a comparison video between my meat friends and me, and also tried to compare financial effort. Yeah, I never really compared. I mean, I think my resupplies were more expensive than anybody else that I travelled with. Yeah, I think I did pay a little bit more, but I don't think that was specifically for being vegan. I think it was for being healthy. So like ramen you can get for like 50 cents or 75 cents or something, but I would buy the Far East couscous and make the pine nuts with it and things. So I was very conscious of my nutrition whilst out on there. So I think I did spend a little bit more, to be fair. Jimmy Johnson asked me, how did I monitor the calories I would need to be eating, and was I confident I was eating enough for the extra exertion on the trail? Now, I never monitored my calories. Beer Hang on a couple of occasions did point out I wasn't eating enough in the Sierra section, and that's when I increased my calories, but I never actually sat down and added it up. I worked it all out based on how I felt energy-wise and muscle-wise. Now, I knew at one point when I was going through the Sierra, I was doing extremely long days. We were going over some very high passes. It was extremely draining. And there was a few points where I just started feeling tired and weak. And I instantly knew I just was not getting the calorie in versus out ratio correct. So I just remedied that very quickly with eating an awful lot more. And I was fine, and I did literally just used to eat how I felt. So if I started feeling tired, I'd eat more. If I felt that I was eating too much, I'd just slow off a little bit, and I just listened to my body. And I don't know if anyone else out there knows about how this feels, but particularly since going vegan, I think I really understand my body a lot better, and I know what it needs, and I know when things aren't working right, what I need to do to fix it. So yeah, I never actually counted calories. I think if I had to guess how much I was eating on an average day out there, I'd say probably about 4,000 calories was probably average. John DeVita asks me, was it difficult and did I have limited options for resupply, and how did I manage it? Well, that's all on my other videos, and I didn't find it that difficult. Sometimes you're just stuck with having to have certain foods that you don't like, that's not very nutritious, but you just think, well, it's short term, it's only going to be for a week, or it's only going to be for 3 or 4 days, and then I know I'm going to get to a town, it's going to be better, I'll be able to top up on everything that I need. And that's all I kept saying to myself, was if I do have to eat badly, then it's only short term and it's not a long term thing. The last one is by Tracky Boy, and he said, if I knew how many days of travel were ahead of me, did I make a meal plan, or did I just hit the grocery aisles and throw it all together as I went? I was a bit of a planner. One thing I always did was keep a running shopping list on my phone. So I had a notes section, 2 sections actually for my shopping list. One was things that I always have to get when I get to town, and that was things like toilet paper and sunscreen, make sure I had enough toothpaste, always make sure I had my Cliff Bar, you know, so it was certain things I knew I always had. And then my other shopping list was how many of every item I needed. And I kind of figured that out pretty quickly. Within a couple of weeks, I knew exactly what I was buying before I even got into a town. I knew exactly how many days, how many snacks, what I needed. So yes, I was a bit of a planner, but it was quite easy. It was like a 5-minute job on trail, so it wasn't hard at all. And that is it for all the questions. So I hope you have found this video useful, and as always, if you want any further information or have any questions, or just want to leave a comment or share anything that you've enjoyed whilst out on trail, feel free to put them down in the comment section below. As I said before, I've done a previous video all about Resupply, where I sent my resupplies and all the details and specifics, so you can check that out. I'll put the link in the description box below for that as well. And until next time, goodbye!